Today, we're sitting down on the porch with Donna, a QHS member whose life is as heartwarming as a home-cooked meal. What paths did she follow to get to where she is today? Let's take a stroll down memory lane and see what's been cooking behind the scenes.
Warm greetings, beautiful souls. Welcome to my prequel. Most of my ancestors originated from northwestern Europe and eventually settled in different parts of the United States. My parents were born and raised in the mid-Hudson Valley of southeastern New York in the late 1920s and 30s. My mom's parents divorced when she and her two brothers were young. This was a stressful period in their lives. Eventually, my grandmother remarried, and their family settled on her husband's dairy farm, an environment where my mother, as a young teenager, felt enslaved and was expected to do a lot of the physical labor, with very little free time to socialize with friends. These experiences caused her to look at everything in life in a very negative fashion. My father's dad was a school principal. After retiring, he invested in a Victorian home on an 80-acre vegetable farm with his wife, a strict Methodist, raising 6 children. After high school, my father joined the Army and then the Air Force. After the Korean War ended, my parents met and married, settling down on the family farm. Over the years, my mother gave birth to 12 children, 7 girls and 5 boys. I am the second daughter, born in 1955, and 5th from the oldest. So I kind of got lost in the shuffle of life, spending a lot of my early and preteen years learning from the mistakes of my siblings, while enjoying life, playing in nature, fishing, hiking, and spending time with the neighborhood kids. The 1950s was often called the golden age of America, a time of economic prosperity and the emergence of the baby boomer generation. During this early period of my childhood, life with my family was a joy. Birthday and holiday celebrations in a large family were always the best of times, along with summertime cookouts, catching fireflies, and riding Alfonso, our pet pig. As I grew older, my father and siblings taught me how to swim, fish, and climb trees. My mother taught me how to do household chores. In the beginning, chores were fun, but then it got old very fast. To avoid chores, I'd wake up early like my siblings, grab a quick bite to eat, and then run outside to play before Mom finished her breakfast. If I was hungry, I'd fill up on berries, grapes or pears I'd pick on the farm. When the noon siren went off, we'd return for lunch and then back outside to play again for the afternoon. Around supper time, Mom would yell our names out the window, starting from the oldest to the youngest. If we didn't show up, we'd miss dinner and go to bed hungry, a lesson I quickly learned. Years of running around barefoot, playing in nature, eating fresh fruits and veggies on my grandparents' farm may be why I've been healthy most of my life, and why I crave spending time in nature whenever I'm feeling out of sorts. Then came the 1960s and early 70s in my life, a period of great social change in American history, as well as the breakdown of my relationship with my family. Emotional and financial stressors of raising a large family eventually took a toll on us all. After the loss of a daughter at age 6 months from pneumonia and a son at age 14 from cancer, my parents began self-medicating with alcohol and tobacco. Sporadic arguments between my parents led to angry fights and eventually physical abuse, creating an unstable, chaotic environment and a challenge for any of us to thrive. Around the age of 12, I was sexually assaulted. I reached out for help from my mother after the incident, and she accused me of lying and said if I ever spoke of it again, she would send me away and I'd never see my family again. Boy, did that scare me. I remember feeling traumatized by her response and struggled to understand her rejection. She refused to speak of it any further. Her reaction broke my heart. As time went on, I felt ostracized by my family. Feeling so alone, I buried my pain and pulled away from everyone. At one point, I overdosed on pills and then puked them up, just wanting to end the pain that kept a stronghold on my heart. No one appeared to hear me getting sick in the bathroom that night, nor did they seem to notice that I ran away late one night a few weeks later, trying to escape the pain of rejection I felt whenever I was in the house. I walked about 5 miles that night before I turned around and headed back to our town, finding refuge at the Methodist Church where I attended Sunday school classes. A happier place, full of fun memories where I learned about Jesus and how much he loved me. Later that evening, I broke down and cried my heart out, trying to rationalize why my world seemed to be falling apart. Eventually, I fell asleep on the floor of the upstairs balcony in the church. When I woke a few hours later, I felt scared and cold. I began crying and asking God, why? Why did this happen to me? Suddenly, I felt this warm, radiant light surround me. I felt loved and protected and sensed Jesus holding me as I came to terms with what had happened. As the sun was rising that morning, I looked out the window, seeing my father driving by. At the time, I wondered if he was looking for me. I took seeing him as a positive sign that I was missed, and I opted to head home and face the music for being gone. When I arrived, my parents sat at the breakfast table and said nothing to me. They acted as if they didn't see me. They just seemed lost in their own world. That summer, I spent most of my time in a tree fort us kids had built near the barn. I spent hours there reading romance novels, dreaming about how one day my Prince Charming would show up, sweep me away, and we'd live happily ever after, and I'd never have to worry about any of this ever again. As time went on, I only spoke with my parents when I had to. Over the years, I buried my head in my schoolwork, spending time with friends in nature, playing school sports, and working at a local diner. On the evening of my high school graduation, when I was 17, I loaded up my car with my belongings and left home without saying goodbye to live with a friend. At that point in my life, I was only focused on meeting my needs, thinking that no one cared or would miss me, and didn't consider how my decision would impact my relationship with my family in the long run. 2 years later, in the early part of summer, I hit hard times. I lost my job from a poor choice and became homeless. When I came home and asked my mother if I could return, I was told no, my room was no longer available. But I was allowed to set up a tent in our backyard for the summer and use the bathroom facilities as needed until I could get back on my feet. Wow, I was so grateful for that support. My mother still refused to talk with me during that time, but my father assisted me in finding a job. And by fall, I was back on my feet financially and had found a small apartment to rent nearby. Around the age of 23, I married a local dairy farmer I'd met. 3 months later, I learned he was having an affair with an older woman. So I left and moved on with my life. At least I thought I did. Well, a few months later, I reconnected with an old beau and got pregnant with my first daughter. Well, back in the late 70s, it was frowned upon to have a child out of wedlock. Long story short, since my husband and I hadn't yet finalized our divorce, we agreed to work through our issues and give the marriage another try for the sake of the baby. 2 years later, my second daughter was born. But by the time she turned 3, my husband and I divorced. 4 years after that, I met and married a loving Italiano. Wow. He was a joy to be around. He had 2 children from a previous marriage, and along with my 2 kiddos, we merged our families together. We started up a construction company, and I became a New York State building inspector. A proud moment. It was during this adventure that my fingers took a beating while laying riprap along the banks of a stream. An unstable area collapsed, causing injury to some of my joints. Overall, our life together was good for the first 5 years, but sadly this marriage ended 2 years later due to an ongoing conflict with one of my children who was struggling with mental health issues. After we split, my children and I moved to Northeast Iowa to be closer to my older sister, who offered to assist us in creating a new life there. 3 years after arriving in Iowa, I was blessed to meet and marry an amazing soul who had the heart of a humanitarian. Our time together was like riding a roller coaster. There were many ups and downs throughout this adventure, but lots of lessons learned along the way by all of us. Between the challenges of raising teens, military deployments, operating a computer business, and the eventual adoption of our 2 grandchildren, life was never boring. In 2009, 13 years after we married, my beloved husband passed away from kidney cancer as a result of the toxic air he was exposed to from hundreds of oil wells that were set on fire while he was deployed in Kuwait during the Gulf War. The devastation of his loss, the responsibility of raising our 2 young grandchildren, and all of the lifestyle changes that followed took its toll on me emotionally, mentally, and physically, and eventually led to my experiencing adrenal fatigue symptoms. In 2016, my mother passed away from COPD and emphysema. Prior to her death, my father also had passed away from the same health issues. Thankfully, I was able to strengthen my relationship with each of them before they passed, gaining a better understanding of how they perceived life and why they reacted the way they did when I needed their love and understanding the most as a young child. Seeing life through their eyes helped tremendously with my letting go of the childhood demons that haunted me from that experience. It was at this point in my existence that I began to wake up and acknowledge how all the trauma I'd experienced over the years, all the poor choices, how it all was impacting my overall health and well-being. This awakening led me down a path of learning where I experienced acupuncture, Reiki, massage, and essential oil therapies. Reiki greatly piqued my interest, sending me on a journey of discovery where I learned more about quantum entanglement and ways to release stagnant energy and faulty belief systems by utilizing intention, love, and gratitude, and muscle testing. It was amazing. It still is. And as I did this work, this energy healing work, I began experiencing a significant shift in my awareness, leading me to actively explore quantum technology and engaging with my spirituality in a new and deeper way. The universe and my angelic guides led me to quantum healing systems via Alex Coyer and his YouTube videos promoting his beliefs and the possibility of healing the inflammation I was experiencing in my body with the QTWE device. During one of the live QHS meditations on Zoom after I became a member, I experienced a vision from our Creator that this God spark that Cynthia so talked about, that was within the QTWE device, would heal the world. It was a miracle. And I was so excited to share it that day. Hence why I continue to support and promote the vision and mission of quantum healing systems. The vast wisdom I've gained since joining QHS in March of this year, along with the healing vibes I've received from the QT device, are helping me to eliminate the last vestiges of the inflammation I'm experiencing in my body. In my past 69 years of life, I've gained a diverse set of skills to support my humanitarian journey to make a difference in the world. And now I can add my QHS experience to the top of this list, which also includes a 10-year stint as a volunteer family support coordinator, supporting our families as our Iowa National Guard units deployed to Kuwait, Iraq, and Egypt in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Also, a 7-year grassroots movement adventure to reduce underage drinking among our youth in our local communities. And now, one of my greatest joys, becoming an energy healer, supporting those in need to find the peace and harmony they so richly deserve. Throughout my life journey, I've learned the true power of my nature as a humanitarian, my reason for being here on my life path and divine mission to help God's children, and most important, to guide and share what I've learned from QHS and from the many gurus that have crossed my path about loving and healing oneself, because we all deserve to heal and experience a life filled with abundance and joy. My deepest and loving gratitude goes out to Cynthia, Dr. A, and all of the QHS admin team for all you are doing to help teach us ways to heal our bodies from within. Thank you to all our QHS family for being the beautiful souls that you are. It is an honor to be part of this tribe. Love and blessings to you all.
Join us on the Prequel, where every story matters and every voice is heard. Because here at QHS, we're all about healing, learning, and growing together.